Yeah, probably the other question.
Good morning and welcome everybody to Vale White Horse Institute Council's Cabinet meeting here at Abbey House on Friday, 12/9/6. My name is Councillor Thomas, Leader of Council, and I want to welcome everybody in the room and online to our Cabinet meeting. I don't have any announcements other than the regular emergency procedures, so I'm sure you're all aware of that by now. But if there is an emergency, please follow Candida. Super that sort of thing. Apologies for absence.
Yeah, so we have had apologies from councillors Lucy Edwards and also Lucian.
I don't think we have best be sending council cautions items on the agenda later. The minutes of the last meeting, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Yeah. Yeah. Are we happy to accept those?
Very fine minutes.
5 minutes, that's okay. Do you need a proposer and seconder, or are we just happy to agree?
Nods is good.
Nods is good.
Yeah,
Excellent, thank you. Fantastic. So, declarations of interest. Anyone? Does anybody have anything to declare? Pecuniary or non-pecuniary? I'm taking the silence as no. So I'm passed on to 5 urgent business. Now, I believe. Sorry.
So just to make it clear to you, I'm an investor in Tap Social, and I don't know whether that might be relevant, wouldn't it? It's a relatively small.
There's Nick. Here, Nick.
Sorry, Chair. Could the member clarify his interest?
Yes, so I have a shareholder, £500 shareholder in Tap Social, which is a licensed premises in Botley within the Vale. So I think that's relatively small, but I'll take your advice if you think that's a prejudicial interest.
Can you hold that thought for a moment? I'm going to quickly check the guidance because there is a shareholding limit. I'll come back on in a moment if I may. Thanks. Chair.
I'm always happy to hold the thought about being in the pub. As you know.
I'll be 2 seconds.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I'll let get on with that. Is there any further declarations of interest? No. So thank you, Councillor Fawcett, for that. And Nick is repeating that for us. 5, urgent business. Now, the only thing I wanted to suggest in terms of business, urgent business, is that we rearrange the order of the agenda, because I believe there are certain members of the public and Councillor Fox or who are speaking in public speaking time and recommendations. So if we can move those items up the agenda order so they don't have to wait for the entire agenda, get to those points. So I propose that we put the business rate item at they're organised 8, business rates at 8, and the waste vehicle at 11. Oh, I did it, but I did it for kids. That's fine. Yeah. So waste vehicle at 11, and then proceed in order from that point onwards.
Sorry, Chair, you mean waste vehicles on the 9th, beginning after the rates?
Yes, sorry. I've done it. I thought I was being organised, but I actually put the item number. Yes, that's what I meant was. Yes.
8 business rates,
8,
and then take waste vehicles.
Yes. Yes. 8, 9.
Yes.
That's it. Apologies for the confusion.
Councillor Watts, was it?
Councillor Boxall.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say the sound from those of us online is it's almost impossible to hear what you're saying. I don't know if others are finding the same.
It might be the fan. Apologies.
Just let me switch those off and we'll see it.
Just know if you can hear anything. If I speak now, can you hear me more clearly?
Yes, that's much better. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you. Councillor Popson. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Chair. The question for Councillor Fawcett is whether that shareholding or interest in the company is above 1% of the nominal shareholding of the organisation.
No, I'd be extremely surprised if it was. It's a tiny share.
Yeah, in which case, I mean, it's already notified. It's on your register of interests. I'm happy that you can continue in the debate and that you've considered the position carefully. So I don't think there's a problem with proceeding on such a small value of shareholding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that confirmation. So we're happy with urgent business and rearranging anything. Any further items for urgent business? Excellent. So we go on to public participation, and I believe we have 2 items from the same member, but we will be able to give 3 minutes per
speaker. Yeah.
per speaker. That's great. So if we can call on Councillor Whiteman, I believe that's yeah.
Just to clarify, is that 3 minutes per item though?
Yes, I did say.
Yeah. Okay, great. Which one do you want me to do first, Chair?
Well, let's go into the order. So let's do business rates first.
Okay. So firstly, I'd like to thank officers for the work that they've undertaken in bringing this report forwards. And I'd also like to thank colleagues across the chamber who supported the original motion back in February. That motion came from a simple belief that our pubs and hospitality venues are far more than businesses. They're employers, community hubs, meeting places, warm space, and for many people, somewhere they feel connected rather than isolated. I'm genuinely pleased that today's report recognises the wider social and economic benefits and, more importantly, proposes practical action. Having multiple options is never an easy choice. I think the preferred outcome today I can see from analysing is option A, although it's difficult. Why? Because hospitality doesn't stop at an arbitrary parish boundary or a village sign. Whether the pub is in Abingdon, Wantage, Farringdon, Botley, Kingston, Bagpuys or Denchworth, it all faces the same rising costs, the same increase in national insurance and the same pressure on staffing, energy bills and business rates. Every one of those businesses and pubs contributes to our local economy and everyone employs local people. Everyone supports local suppliers. Everyone provides somewhere where people can come together, especially at this time of year. The government's already recognised that pubs deserve the additional support through its 15% relief scheme, which obviously councils would administer using their discretionary powers and are fully reimbursed for. It makes it clear that obviously councils remain free to then provide additional locally funded relief if they choose. And I think this is our real opportunity to show local leadership. Option A is the most simple. It's fair. It avoids creating winners and losers based purely on geography, and it sends a clear message that the Vale values hospitality wherever it is found. Of course, village pubs face unique pressures, and I remain really passionate about protecting those communities. But I don't believe we should tell a struggling independent pub in one of our market towns that its contribution somehow matters less because it happens to sit on the other side of a parish boundary. This simply isn't just about pubs, it's about jobs, economies, preserving places for communities. And finally, I hope that today marks the beginning rather than the end of this work. Business rates relief alone won't solve every challenge facing hospitality, but it's a meaningful demonstration that this council is prepared to act, listen, and not just simply acknowledge the problem. I'm grateful that Cabinet has listened to the concerns raised through my motion and the speeches back in February, and I hope that members will look at option A today, because obviously if we're going to support hospitality, let's support hospitality. Let's not draw lines on a map that challenges themselves simply don't recognise. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Would you like to go straight on to your next item?
Yeah, let me just breathe for a second. Okay. Right, so obviously...
Have any questions?
Are you happy for me to proceed, Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you for obviously allowing me to speak at this Cabinet. Again, this joint policy will directly affect the residents that I represent, which is why I wanted to address your Cabinet today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that the policy has improved since the June draft and post joint scrutiny, and I welcome the stronger commitment to prioritising electric vehicles where they're operationally and financially viable, and the clearer recognition that HVO is a transition fuel rather than a long-term destination. However, I remain concerned that Cabinet is being asked to approve a strategic procurement policy without a level of technical and financial evidence that I believe such a significant investment deserves. I do believe there's some important gaps. I'd like to be assured that Cabinet would expect to see a comprehensive whole life cost assessment, not simply a comparison of purchase prices when it gets to that point in the procurement process. I'd like to see a transparent fleet replacement matrix so members understand exactly why each vehicle is being replaced, whether that's age, reliability, maintenance costs or downtime. And I'd like to see greater consideration given to financing models and phased electrification rather than assuming upfront capital cost tells the whole story. I also believe that sustainable and ethical HVO has an important role in helping to extend the life of suitable ICE existing vehicles while electrification continues to develop at a pace. And finally, I sincerely hope that today's discussion remains focused on obviously the vehicle procurement. During the South Oxfordshire Cabinet meeting yesterday, there was discussion raised by their Cabinet member responsible for the portfolio around the possibility of moving to 3 weekly residual waste collections and the carbon impacts of such. Obviously, I think the Cabinet member said something around less trips, less carbon. Residents deserve a debate on that sort of service levels, and I'm sure our Cabinet member would not be thinking of such. But I did find that a worrying addition to yesterday's meeting. The message, however, here is simple. Let's make investment decisions based on data, evidence, long-term value, and the best outcome for our residents, not simply because that's how we've always done things. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Thank you very much. So yes. So you're all organised and ready. So item 7, recommendations and updates from other committees, and I believe Councillor Oxall is here as chair of joint scrutiny. Would you like to give your feedback from that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak here as co-chair of joint scrutiny in relation to item 12 on your agenda. There's been a huge amount of discussion about this topic, about vehicle procurement, and I appreciate the changes that have been made to strengthen this policy since our meeting last week. I just really want to touch on 3 things because there's been a lot about this. So climate goals, a key point really for the committee was that the framing and tone of this policy does not integrate with key strategy documents, including the waste strategy and the council plans, in which action on climate and environment are really front and centre of those documents. And one of the ways we wanted to do this more subtly was to ask for the emphasis on minimising vehicles to be removed and for emphasis on route optimisation work to be increased. Because if the question is always how can we do this with the fewest vehicles, the answer is always likely to be internal combustion engines. So questions such as what centres of population do we have within a short enough radius of Great Hazley so that EV RCVs would be viable as part of a mixed fleet? What can we learn from creative solutions that other councils are finding? It was really striking to the committee that we were provided with substantial detail about costs, risks, operations and comparisons with other councils in relation to HVO decisions, but the same is still not being done fully for EV purchases. And we really appreciated the technical data about the grid capacity at Great Hazley and the knowledge that a new trial is underway. So we hope that shortly that much more information will be forthcoming when you guys have to make these decisions. The second point is around total life costs, because this was a key discussion point and it's also repeatedly been raised in email communications from members, including Councillor Whiteman. Though inexplicably this was somehow missed from the recommendation document, and as chair I take responsibility for not spotting that before it came to you. But this need to prioritise total life cost calculations in procurement decisions is really vital. It's briefly alluded to in point 7.11, but this paragraph then switches to a discussion about HVO. So I wonder whether that paragraph can be disaggregated to strengthen the focus on costs. Clearly, this involves different capital and revenue calculations, but affordability is much more than the initial purchase price, as we all know from things like printers and coffee machines. Joint Scrutiny Committee have repeatedly advised Cabinet that they need total life cost evidence, and it's a shame that it's still not here. But again, this is about asking different questions to allow the possibilities for different answers. And finally, on HVO, we do understand the attractive carbon calculations that come with HVO, but this is not a get out of jail free card. There are serious ethical and environmental problems with HVO, as the climate team have repeatedly advised. There's a high risk that HVO simply shifts the harms elsewhere through supply chain fraud, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and inadequate certification. Using HVO in a diesel engine does nothing to force manufacturers to accelerate the transition to clean energy. And I do appreciate the strengthened wording that is in your latest version of this policy. So we do all understand how complicated this all is, but primarily the Joint Scrutiny Committee are asking that Cabinet decisions be based on sound technical, financial and real-world evidence, and a genuine willingness to look at new approaches, including routes and total life costs. And to do that, you need policies that allow different questions. So I appreciate all the work that's been done on this policy, and hope that perhaps after this meeting it can be strengthened even further to help you make decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Foxall. And I do appreciate the work that you put into your feedback, and also chairing what was quite a long and grueling joint scrutiny meeting. That was very well chaired. Does anybody have any questions for Councillor Foxall? No. I think we have discussed this item probably more than many. So I think that all the questions have been worked through. So thank you very much, Councillor Foxall. So I was just going to make a suggestion, given that there were two speakers that were relating to the joint waste vehicle item, and only one for business rates, that we take the waste vehicle one first, just so Councillor Foxall can leave as well, unless she wants to stay for the rest of the meeting. So is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will take the joint South Oxfordshire and Vale White Horse waste and street cleansing vehicle selection and procurement policy as our first substantive item. And Councillor Clegg will be introducing that. So I'll hand over to you, Councillor Clegg. Thank you for an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. So colleagues will remember that in April 2024, the two councils together agreed a joint waste and street cleansing vehicle procurement strategy, which established both the need to progressively replace the vehicles in our waste fleet as they approach end of life, and the ambition to decarbonise them as the opportunity arises. That strategy noted that waste collection accounted for just shy of half our operational CO2 emissions in 2022-2023, and this was still the case 2 years later. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that proportion actually increases this municipal year, not because our waste collection emissions increase significantly, but rather because we are making excellent progress in our other operations. Decarbonisation projects have recently completed at some of our leisure centres, and I was at Wantage Leisure Centre just this time last week to celebrate the switch on of heat pumps and solar panels on the roof. On the topic of last week, however, it would be remiss of me not to mention the red extreme heat warning issued by the Met Office. Second heat wave already this year, and we're barely into July. This is not normal. Those of us sitting around the table may have found it uncomfortable, I know I did, but far greater impacts was felt by vulnerable residents such as the very elderly or young, those with medical conditions, and those whose jobs require them to work in conditions that offer little relief from the weather. I'm sure that the pressing need to tackle the climate emergency was obvious to everyone who attended joint scrutiny last Tuesday, and I'm very grateful to everyone who endured the stuffy heat that evening to contribute their thoughts to the debate. With a special thanks to you, Chair, for substituting for me while I was at the other end of the country. A bit cool up there. I'd also like to thank the many members who have contacted me directly with their thoughts. I have read through everything and taken all views into account. And also to Councillor Cooper and our colleagues on SAPC for working collaboratively on this. Most of all, thanks are due to our officers who have put in a huge amount of work to write and to update this report. They are very clear that the evidence base is not exhaustive, but I'm sure you agree that it is extensive. It's clear that we as a species need to act on climate change, and we as a council need to play our part, while recognising that we cannot solve this problem alone. Even if we had a magic wand and could eliminate all this council's operational emissions in one fell swoop, those are South Oxfordshire as well, why not? Then it wouldn't solve the global problem of climate change. Unfortunately, we don't have a magic wand, and we are constrained by the real world limitations, technical progress, effective range of vehicles, carefully balanced finances, and limited although growing capacity for charging at our depot. I expect that colleagues will have heard the opinions from elsewhere in the country that we should scrap net zero as they deem it too expensive. I find it difficult to express just how much I disagree with that opinion, but it brings to the front of my mind just how important it is for us to get this right. Any over-enthusiastic decisions that put our service delivery at risk, or which seriously threaten the financial sustainability of this council, say, would be seized upon by climate deniers as ammunition to drag us back to a time when fossil fuels were burned unthinkingly. The challenge before us is to act ambitiously, but realistically. It's a difficult line to walk, and I must thank officers again for all their hard work in putting together evidence that helps us make these difficult decisions. The policy doesn't actually make these decisions, but rather sets the framework for how those decisions will be made in the near future. Lastly, I welcome any and all questions and debate on this topic, and I'm really glad I don't have to make this difficult decision alone. I'm happy to have you all with me.
Thank you, Councillor Clegg. Now, obviously, this went through South Cabinet last night, and I believe there was a slight amendment to one of the recommendations, recommendation A. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'll just get up on the screen.
There is a slight amendment to point A of the recommendation. So approves the updated waste and cleansing vehicles selection and procurement policy, which includes the outline procurement approach, and authorises the Director of Housing and Environment in consultation with the relevant cabinet member to make minor amendments. Is that correct? So that should be get back to the original. Is everybody happy with that wording? Comparing it to the original in Councillor Boss.
I have a few questions for Councillor Clegg, if that's all right.
Oh, okay.
Having listened to some of the debate that's being going on, shall I just go through them?
Please do, yeah.
So one of the questions that's been raised is the extent to which we are learning from other councils. I note that County Council has also just, I think, made some progress on this issue as well in terms of their fleet. And I just wondered, I'm assuming we do talk to other councils and try and learn from them, but can you just say a bit about how we do that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so it's worth pointing out before we really dive into this that some of the councils that have been mentioned as exemplary in adopting EVs have a far higher population density than we do in Vale and South. So, for example, Westminster City Council has a population density of around 9,500 people per square kilometre. You compare that to Vale of Whitehorse, it's more like 250. It's just an order of magnitude less. Other councils have been mentioned, include Manchester, about 4.8 thousand, Oxford, over 3,500, Eastleigh, 1,700 people per square kilometre. One council that has been mentioned is actually, I think, not relevant quite right now, but may well be relevant in years to come quite soon, is Lewes District Council in
East
Sussex.
Well, yeah.
Which has a population density of around 340, 350 thereabouts. So it's still higher than here, but it's the same order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And we could well see that as population density of Vale increases, obviously not that much in a few years, but also as the technology improves and so on, that actually we could well look to Lewes as an example of a great learning case to.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. It's basically three towns in a rural district, so there are similarities, but also key differences.
Yes, right. It's not partnering with another district council, I understand it, as we are with South. So keeping us there, but it's certainly something that I'm keeping an eye on, and I think officers are too. I'm sure they disagree with me if they aren't, but they're staying brave silence. So yes.
So that ties in with another question I have. I know this is an issue that quite a lot of people have raised, which is around route modelling. So I'm assuming that either us or our contractor does route modelling and does try and make it as efficient as possible. I understand there are issues. What the key issues we have is that most of our routes are simply too long for the current vehicles available. Again, could you just say a little bit about what work we are doing on that?
Indeed. So we don't do any route modelling as a council, but the current contractor almost certainly does. It'd be very much in their interest to, and if they weren't, then they wouldn't be nearly as efficient as they are, frankly. So yes, route modelling is being done. It's worth mentioning though that updates to the routes are something we don't want to do too often, because you'd see, you know, the days that residents have their waste collected can change, quite easily change whenever a route is changed, which would be a huge inconvenience. Of course, if there is a big change and we want to make some drastic improvements to our carbon emissions, for example, then it's probably worth doing. But if we're regularly reviewing routes, as I believe the contractor is, we don't want to be changing the routes every month, because that would be a massive hassle for residents. So yes, as I understand it, route modelling is being carried out and it is being reviewed regularly. But in terms of actually making that big jump, we don't want to do that too often.
Thanks. One more. Okay. Another issue that people have raised is around the new site at Great Hazley. And there's some reference to this in the report, but can you just say a little bit about what we're doing, what we're planning to do at that site to maximise use of renewables and reduce carbon emissions, particularly around solar and battery storage?
So two things are going on at Great Hazley. The charging capacity from the grid is being upgraded. I think they're set out in section 4. Go with me, on appendix 2. That's a very long appendix. It's certainly in there. So that is in the works. Officers are working closely with the distribution network operator to plan out. Oh, sorry, it's quite early in table 1. To plan out how the charging capacity will ramp up over the next few years, from about just under 300 kVA this year, all the way up to 2,000 in 2030. So obviously, being able to draw large amounts of electricity from the grid means we can take advantage of the solar and wind power and other renewables that are being built across the country. The other aspect is the opportunity for on-site renewables and battery storage. Now, as part of the planning application for the Great Hazley site redevelopment, there are solar panels being put on the roof. The intended purpose of that, though, isn't for charging the vehicles, because the vehicles will mostly charge at night, when famously the sun doesn't really shine. It's really for the operational during the day. So the ambition there is the solar panels being installed on will make it essentially net zero during the day, but the charging of the waste vehicles would be at night when they'd be drawing from the grid. Installing batteries has been explored, but is not being actively pursued right now. It's something that officers keep an eye on. There's at least two limitations. First of all, the cost of installing batteries, and that'd be really quite substantial. And secondly, there's also the space needed to put them somewhere. And there might be a trade-off there, whereby if we put on batteries to store solar during the day, then actually we might reduce the number of bays available for charging vehicles overnight. So it might be quite a difficult decision. But officers are certainly keeping in mind and reviewing options as they go.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Can I just link the discussion about Great Hazley and also then the link about looking at the operational routes? 100% agree. We don't want to keep changing the routes too frequently. So as we'll remember the chaos it caused, was it in November 2 years ago? It really did cause problems. But Great Hazley, if you like, is a major trigger point for having to change the routes, because the vehicles will be starting from a different location and ending at a different location. So I note that in the appendix 2, it talks about looking at the EV capacity for that compares with the challenges of the largest vehicles. But did we ask the contractor to say what would be the art of the possible were you to have X number of EVs? So, you know, I know I'm very simplistic here. I think of the current technology, trying to run an EV from Great Hazley to pick up the residual waste in Farringdon, probably not going to work. However, it might work for Abingdon, I'm saying. So, whilst we might not have the vehicles or indeed the capacity at the moment, have they looked at saying, were we to have those, this is what we could do?
I certainly remember some discussions about that a while ago, but I don't have it in my notes in front of me. So at this point, I might ask officers to chip in if that's okay. I think I'm going to either Paul or Scott.
Yeah, hello. I'm quite happy to start on that answer, though I think Scott is also on 9. So BIFA are doing routing. As we know, we've just entered into the new contract, so they continue to operate from the current depot for a short period of time, but they are doing routing based on the current vehicles to operate out of the new depot, and that's quite a lot of work in itself. If we're at a point where we're talking about different types of vehicles, then which have different lengths of rounds that they can do, then we would talk to them at that point about what the changes would be. I think it is worth saying that the changes, if we brought in, and it's been raised elsewhere, that we could have more vehicles and be less efficient but be more carbon efficient, and that's completely correct that could happen. There would obviously also be an impact on the cost of operating the service, because you'd need more staff to operate those vehicles. So there'd be a whole life implication of understanding what would happen if we changed the vehicles, the impacts on the rounds. So the detailed, to answer Councillor Coleman's question about has detailed work been done to say if there were different types of vehicles, not at this moment, because we just started the contract and we need them to do the routing on the existing vehicles, but that could happen if we decided that we wanted different vehicles in the future.
And that makes perfect sense, because clearly the priority is to get the route sorted now with what we have as opposed to what we would like to have. And I totally accept that if we increase the number of vehicles, we're going to increase revenue costs the contractor and therefore to us in terms of having more staff. However, the whole life cost evaluation may still work out to be cheaper. So I think this has been raised a couple of times. So it's not just the procurement cost and what the immediate revenue cost is in terms of, let's say, increasing the workforce by 50%. It's then looking at the whole life cost for whatever we would expect the life expectancy for those vehicles to be. So I'm convinced that officers will be doing this, but I think that's something that we would just look to some reassurance that when it says we could go for, I don't know, 50% of the next procurement being electric vehicles, provided we increase the workforce by, then we want to know how much that would cost. And there must be some way of doing some modelling, that says simplistically one IC 26 tonner would require replacement by 2 electric vehicles. Therefore, the exponential cost of that would be, and I think that would be something I would like to see as a comparison for when we come to making. So I think it's now going to come to cabinet, isn't it? When we make the decision of what the next tranche of procurement would be. Am I asking for something that's impossible, or?
If I come in there, so no, we would be planning to bring the whole life costs to the council as part of that decision making. What we need to be clear and obviously be very careful how we word this in a to avoid any kind of commercial confidentiality regarding the contract, is that we own the vehicles, we purchase the vehicles, but the operation of the vehicles and the cost of repair and maintenance and fueling under the new contract as it currently stands is with the contractor. So and that will be based, their contract is based on the understanding of the current types of vehicles, which is ICE vehicles. If that was to change in the future, we need to consider the impacts of that upon the contract. So putting it bluntly, if we change vehicles to something that might be more expensive upfront but have lesser running costs, that doesn't necessarily mean that that will flow through to the council. The impacts of those benefits will necessarily flow through to the council, but that would be part of a future conversation with the contractor.
So I guess what I was asking was, in principle, can it work, and could it be done like that? And and I guess the answer comes back as a mix of those. Is it 4 factors that come out? Operational ability, cost, reducing the carbon footprint, and then will be the contractual bit as well. So yeah, thank you. I think you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a quick question related to the feedback that Councillor Foxall brought to us.
Yeah.
And it was more around the sort of drafting of the wording. So I know the recommendation, the addition to recommendation A that's out passed. If we pass the same wording, would that enable some sort of tweaking of the wording in line with what the scrutiny committee were looking at? So in terms of linking it back to our council plans and some other sort of cross-referencing and that kind of thing, is that the sort of thing that recommendation would cover, basically? Could we address those points that Councillor Foxall was raising through passing that amended recommendation?
I believe so. I mean, it does
Yeah.
sound as though it gives us more input at that point.
Mm.
I think yes. I
Yeah.
also add that it makes it more flexible in case there are unexpected but welcome technological advances that aren't captured in our current approach of fairing EVs. So Councillor Forster just mentioned that OCC have recently taken, or OCC's contractor has recently taken delivery of a dual hydrogen HVO vehicle.
Yeah.
The report sets out that we generally consider that hydrogen isn't really that feasible, but who knows, it may well change. And so if it does change, then actually we could potentially look at hydrogen instead of EVs as the route forwards without having to go through too much trouble. I doubt it, but never say never.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think, like I said, we have quite often have similar wording in as a recommendation for all those reports to enable small changes, and a couple of the exact wording line for certainly did say that the cabinet member would be involved in that discussion.
And in practice, it would be both cabinet members.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, I might have slightly misunderstood one of the things that the officer said, but I think he said if we decide to go down the route of EV, we'll look at the routes. And I apologise if I misunderstood or misheard, but it seems to me that it ought to be the other way round. Surely we need to determine whether the potential routes are feasible for electric vehicles, rather than, it's about the horse and the bolt, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So I would have hoped that some work could be done with the existing geography, knowing where the depot is, knowing where the waste transfer station is, to determine whether or not some routes can be assessed to be EV ready, if you like, because of the distances.
That's what I might have phrased it badly, but that's what the question I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily the answer that we got, and I just really wanted some clarification that work can be done to determine whether any of our routes are potentially EVable, such a word, rather than waiting for a decision that says yes, we want to go down the EV route now.
Paul, would you like to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you. So the purpose of this policy is to give the framework for officers to help us decide to put forward the recommendations of the types of vehicles that we would buy. There may be options as a result of that, and the options then that may come forward and could be along the lines of we can buy a range of vehicles based on the geography and all the things that I've said, or that we could buy different types of vehicles, and there might be a cost difference. So we will bring those options forward to members in the autumn, and then you'll be able to make those decisions where there are decisions. So it's about saying we will only put options in front of you for vehicles that can do the role, can do the job, but where there might be options of buying more vehicles that might have shorter range with an increased cost, then we can put that in front of both councils and you can make a decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Yes.
that was the point. I mean, I 100% agree. We don't want that written in this policy, because this policy isn't about that. It's does the policy allow us that flexibility? That's the key bit. Or does it prohibit it? And I think my view is it does not prohibit it. So,
you can. Yeah, I do appreciate this. This is a policy document setting out what to be replying, rather than specifying the nitty-gritty. I saw it as sort of future-proofing account, just sort of thinking that we have no idea where we're going with this, as you said, Councillor Click. Something could be just around the corner that we have no idea about. I know that we've been talking about hydrogen since I've been a councillor here, and all of a sudden yesterday, M Group at County had a hydrogen compatible vehicle. So, yeah, we never know what's going on.
So as I see it, it's what we've been asked today is I can put it into two buckets. The first one is the policy, and does it enable us to, in the future, determine the best combination of vehicles to achieve the operational task within cost, and at the same time reducing the carbon footprint as much as possible. Part of that answer is going to be that we will have no option but to continue to run some of our ICEs and potentially have to buy some more, which then brings on to the second part, which is the hydro-treated vegetable oil. And as far as I can see, the difference between the discussion today and what we had back in 24 is over really the ethical procurement of HVO. Whereas, so I can't remember the exact wording, but the paper in 24 actually said that we couldn't really guarantee that it would be ethically sourced. And I think now that the answer is saying that it's much better controlled, and therefore we could. First two-part question. The first one, have I understood that correctly? Second part question, even if we are getting ethically sourced HVO, are we confident that doesn't create a gap elsewhere that then is filled by non-ethically sourced HVO? So it will create a gap 100% because there's more being used, but are we confident that that isn't forcing a problem on somebody else?
So your understanding of, to answer the first question, your understanding is pretty consistent with my understanding. Okay. So if we're one correct and you're correct,
we'll make it our way, yeah.
And I'm sure bosses would pop up if it was different from their understanding. On the second point, you're asking if we were to adopt HVOs, then would we be essentially kind of forcing someone else to adopt non-ethical HVOs, or point out the really non-ethical HVOs is diesel, which is really not very ethical.
Well,
and so, you know,
is there sufficient ethically sourced HVO to meet the increased demand?
Well, HVO comes from a number of different sources. In terms of the waste cooking oils, for example, no, the demand for HVO outstrips the amount of waste vegetable oil available. And so at least some of the HVO comes from energy crops. So crops grown specifically to put into biofuels. Now, I did have concerns over this because, you know, there are issues in this country and elsewhere around food security and food availability. But I actually attended the National Emergency Briefing film shown in Abingdon. I think it has been a number of different places around the county recently, which pointed out that huge amounts of our farmland is already very inefficiently farmed for grown meat. We eat so much meat in this country, but actually that is a far, far greater source of unsustainable food production than HVOs ever would. So I think the need to tackle the climate emergency and the spare bandwidth within arable land working to eat less meat means that yes, it would be entirely possible to power our vehicles from HVOs in an ethical way, and we shouldn't be too concerned about it, because frankly, if we don't tackle the climate emergency, there won't be any arable farmland in 50 years' time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does that answer your question or not?
I just want to know when we're going to regeneration farming. Then we fix the problem.
Any further questions or comments?
It's a cheerful film, isn't it?
Yeah, it did end on the money.
Yes. We know how to fix things.
It's not done.
We just aren't.
Yes. So, if there are no further questions or comments, I feel as though I didn't really speak, but I do, my concern, and I think Councillor Fox mentioned it, was the issue of the whole life cost, but I think that's been explained. The focus for us really is the procurement cost, the cost of buying vehicles. So, that is our consideration, and we will do that within the parameters that are set out in the policy, and our desire to make what we create here the most climate friendly fleet that we can at the time, with the operational considerations that we have to take. So, as I said before, the purpose of this paper is the policy decision. And did you want to sum up in any way, or
I'm not
sorry? I was just thinking out loud. Is the policy, and we have really dug into this. I think first and foremost, operational, climate, and cost. So I'm happy to. You want to? Oh, okay. So I do appreciate the amendment that was received last night. I think that gives us more flexibility, and I think it gives us that sort of future proofing. So, Councillor Clegg, or whoever's in that post at the time, this would be going on for several years. We'll be able to consider this and input into this decision at procurement point, and I think that's really appreciated. So, I should read amended?
Read the amendment.
Excellent. Yeah. So I read through the recommendation. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'll do it myself. So recommendations that we approve the updated waste and street cleansing vehicle selection and procurement policy, which includes the outline procurement approach in Appendix 1, and authorises the Director of Housing and Environment in consultation with relevant cabinet members to make minor amendments. That we approve considering using hydro-treated vegetable oil, HVO, instead of mineral diesel in the waste and street cleansing fleet to better meet the decarbonisation aspirations of the council. The implementation of the decision is subject to contract viability and approval through the budget setting process for 2027-28. And that we note the Director of Housing and Environment will undertake the assessment of the financial and contractual viability as part of the budget setting process for 27-28. So I believe Councillor Clegg are proposing this.
Just please.
Yes, who would like to second? Councillor Coleman. And is everybody in agreement?
Agreed.
Agrees.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much. And Councillor Foxall, if you're still there, if you want to leave, if you can, but please feel free to stay. We will be moving on to the business rate item. You want to give them a second? Go through. So the business rate item in its full title is business rates local discretionary relief scheme for 2026-27. And I believe Councillor Coleman. Yeah, you're happy to introduce.
Thank you, Jen. So this report responds directly to the council motion agreed in February 2026 to consider additional support for our village pubs and community licensed premises as vital community infrastructure. It brings forward a set of clear deliverable options for a local discretionary business rate relief for the year 26-27. The purpose of the proposal is to provide targeted short-term financial support to pubs and potentially other rural businesses who have been particularly impacted by recent economic pressures. This aligns with our corporate objectives. Members will be aware of the significant pressures facing the hospitality sector: rising costs, inflation, reduced consumer spending, and increase in business rates following the 2026 revaluation. And I would also include the sorry, I've lost the phrase. Employers' contribution for insurance. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Now, all of those things, are factors that are affecting the running of businesses, and in particular, the reason we're talking about pubs is that we've seen an average rateable value increase of around about 40% compared with the lower increases across other hospitality sectors. Government has responded with a national 15% business rates relief scheme for pubs and live music venues. However, the motion recognised that further local support may be needed, particularly for village and rural pubs, which play a key role in community life. The report sets out a range of options, which are A to E, allowing Cabinet to determine how widely the support should be applied and how targeted it should be. These range from a district-wide top-up for all pubs, which is option A, through to the more targeted support for rural and sole community businesses, B through to E, or broader schemes including other rural services such as shops and post offices. Importantly, all options are time limited for 2026 to 2027. They're designed to be proportionate and aimed at providing short-term resilience rather than a long-term solution. This is locally funded scheme using section 47 powers, the cost being shared across the business rate system, 40% borne by the district council, 10% by the county council, with the remainder being the national share of rates income foregone. For example, a district-wide scheme would cost approximately £135,000 overall, with around £54,000 falling to the council. Funding would come from existing budget underspends, ensuring no additional pressure on core services, which is key. It is important to emphasise that this proposal is not the only support being provided. Alongside financial relief, the council's economic development team is already delivering a significant programme of support, including the Vista Economy project, providing ongoing targeted support for hospitality businesses funded through to March 2027. Regular Vista Economy Connect networking events, engaging with over 60 local organisations and providing practical business support. The Visit Southern Oxfordshire platform promoting local businesses and events, attracting around 6,000 visits per month and supporting above 480 events last year. In short, this scheme sits alongside a broader package of support combining financial assistance, business advice and active promotion of the local economy. There are some important considerations for members. Any scheme will not fully resolve the structural challenges facing the sector. These risks are clearly set out in the report, and members are asked to balance fairness, affordability, and targeting of support. In conclusion, this report provides Cabinet with a range of clearly defined options, a proportionate local response to national changes, It also demonstrates that the council is taking a balanced approach, combining financial relief with wider economic development support. I therefore recommend that Cabinet approves the introduction of a local discretionary relief scheme for 26 to 27 and agrees a package on the options set out in the report, determining the appropriate level and focus of support.
Thank you. So, again, this has been an item that's been strongly debated and discussed at great. And it is important that we do so for the reasons set out in your introduction. It is a difficult one to determine if we are to go ahead with this level of support, how we go about it. I'll pass over to Councillor Fawcett first. So, Councillor Fawcett.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the officers for the report. I'm very pleased that we've got options in front of us to actually go further than the motion did at council. And even if I wasn't going to support them, it would be helpful to have those options on the table and costed as it is. My sense is I think we should do as much as we can. Pubs in particular, but other rural businesses as well, are closing at an alarming rate. And if we can afford to, and I think our finances do allow us to, we should do as much as we possibly can to try and reduce that rate. I have an interest in a family pub that's run by my brother in North Yorkshire, but because it's in North Yorkshire, that is not a prejudicial interest in this decision today. But I do know how tight the finances are running any kind of business in the hospitality sector, and that is a rural pub as well. And I know that there are pubs that have closed for reasons like they need a major bit of equipment in the kitchen replacing, and they just have run out of the ability to raise the capital to do it. Looking at the figures, I think if my maths is working this time on a Friday morning, after being in my local pub last night, we are looking at around £1,700 on average per business. I know there'll be a range within that, but we're not talking about a massive amount of money. But for a pub that is running at the margins, it could actually make a difference. And frankly, if we can help 2 or 3 pubs that would otherwise close keep going another year or two, that's worth doing. It's not just about the business; it's about the impact a pub has, particularly if it's the last one in the community. We've seen so many pubs, so many villages lose their pubs across the Vale over the last few decades. It really does take one of the few remaining opportunities for community get-togethers and so on. And it's worth emphasising that pubs are not just about drinking of an evening. They tend to provide a whole range of activities. They're often the base for community activities in villages that don't have any others. So I won't go on and on because I could go on for hours. You all know my passion for being in the pub as often as possible. But I'm very supportive. I'll be interested to hear what other councillors think. But my view is that we should go as broadly as we can, and my understanding is we can afford to. So that's what I think we should do.
Thank you, Councillor Fawcett. I saw Councillor Smith's hand.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything that Councillor Fawcett just said. I do think that, so in my actual ward, we've lost, so basically half the village pubs have closed since I've been a councillor, and it has a huge impact on the community, and particularly where those villages don't have anything else. So one of the villages that I represent, the pub's gone, but there is no kind of community shop or any other facility that's kind of that can sort of fill the gap in the same way. So I think that first of all, I'd just like to say the government needs to do a lot more, and whatever we can do, I think we should do as much as we possibly can and go as broad as we can. But we're not going to fix this whole situation, and I think that it's really important that we voice that and sort of do what we can to raise those concerns with government. So I know that you wrote to government and things, but I think we should look at that and see what more we could be doing, working with MPs, working with anybody else to sort of give examples and put pressure on government to do more. And with a new, we will have a new Prime Minister. There's an opportunity maybe for a sort of shift. I get frustrated that national government don't always seem to think through how the policies impact on rural communities. And we are a very rural district, and one size doesn't fit all. So when I'm looking at the options, I am particularly drawn to the ones that focus what we can afford. Obviously, it's going to be a small amount relative to all of the businesses that we would like to support. But I do think that focusing on the rural areas is really important, particularly because there's less likely to be another business that could do the same thing. So yeah, I'm definitely drawn to supporting rural pubs and other rural businesses as our sort of focus. But yeah, interested to hear what other people say. I just had a quick look at the numbers as well, and the potential numbers of businesses that we could help with the different options. So I was looking at the rural pubs and other rural businesses, and it looks like from the report that would be 115 businesses around that would be able to benefit if we went for option B and D, whereas if we just went for all pubs, it would be 78 pubs. So in terms of the number of businesses that we could support, options B and D stack up quite well as well. But yeah, wish we could do more.
I know Councillor Coleman's raring to go in, but this is really difficult, and it's sort of set up both by your frustrations with government and by, I think, the original motion in itself, because it's sort of asking lots of different things. So the government policy at the moment is really, and it's not just government policy, it's sort of the larger commercial context of breweries and pubs are really struggling, I think, and because of we're talking about increases in wages for younger people, and obviously pubs are very good employers of younger people traditionally, but because of the increases in the cost there, that's a problem. There's also brewery charges and various things for those pubs that are affected by this, and various costs of running a pub, and that is for all our pubs. So that is one consideration. So we're sort of being, I have in my mind the conversation, the ideas about pubs suffering. But then, if we're talking about rural pubs, there are rural businesses as well. So as you said, I wouldn't want to just say, oh, it's about rural pubs without considering rural businesses. But again, we go back here, it's the pubs that are particularly suffering. So that's why I'm really confused. And also I was thinking about how other businesses, both in our towns and in rural settings, how they have small business relief. I was talking a bit to Councillor Coleman about this and how that affects it. It's such a complex. I'm clever, I'm not showing you. But Councillor Coleman, that was just me sort of venting a little bit. I am confused by what we're being asked by this really, and what we have been asked by this. But I'm happy to listen to everybody's musings, and we can come up with the right options.
So, and we do have some officers online in case I start to stray off of the correct path. But so yeah, small business rate relief is available to a number of businesses, and effectively would be 100% rate relief to the value, rateable value of about 12,000, I think, and then it reduces up to 15,000. So above 15,000, you get zero. So a lot of businesses will get small business rate relief where they either are not paying full amount or they're not paying anything at all. So that does fit with the smaller businesses that we're considering. For me, I understood this motion as, if you like, two aspects. One is, if you like, the disproportionate effect that government policies have had on pubs, which is significantly national insurance contribution, minimum wage, energy costs, etc. But also they've been hit with the 40% increase on average of the rate, the business rate, and that's a figure of that's generated through the rateable value of property changing, and also the there's a discount that's put in that works out what rateable value they would pay, i.e. what proportion of that rateable value do they pay, and that figure was reduced by the government, and it came in and was varied through COVID. That's when it first started seeing this. So actually, a business pre-COVID may well have been paying more business rates than they are paying now. But we're trying to affect the problem that we've got now, which is this increase, this 40% increase. So I think that's first one. Pubs disproportionately affected by rate increases of on average about 40% compared to other businesses. I think then there's a second aspect to this, which is and I'm not sure there's a technical term, but I would call it the community space. It's the value that business provides in the community, particularly in rural areas where it might be the only one. So that leads me then to draw there's two ways that we can solve each one of those in isolation. One would be that we give rate relief to all pubs. Okay, that to some degree ameliorates the 40% increase that they're suffering. That would then not affect the rural businesses where you only have one post office or you only have one food shop, where people will go and it is their community space. It might well be that they go, buy their loaf of bread from the shop, but they will spend some time in there talking to people. So for me, I would wish that I think the motion talks about providing community space or trying to protect it, which goes above pubs. So now I'm looking at two options here. Something to support the pubs and something to support the rural community where there's a sole, and this would then be where there's a sole business, which is what the rural rate relief guidance has. It is a business such as it could be a pub, but it's the only pub that's in that village. And rural, it equates to 3,000 people, less than 3,000. But it also might be the post office, or it might be the food store that's there, food shop. So for me, although the motion doesn't ask for this, the motion asks for support for rural pubs, and you could read it as saying rural pubs where it's the only pub. I think that ought to be expanded. So I would say all pubs in the district. But then I think because pubs aren't the only sole community space, I think we should include the other businesses that are classified within the rural rates relief guidance. And the reason I would go for those two as opposed to trying to pick and mix the various businesses is they're easily definable. It's transparent. So any pub that's receiving the relief from the government, 15% relief in our district, would fall into option A. Any business that's a sole business and meets the criteria for the rural rate relief would fall there. So we're not mixing, which I understand that means that some businesses will fall out of that. There will always be winners and losers, but it was very clear to people, to businesses, which ones would benefit and which ones will not receive it. It also makes it, and whilst this isn't the highest priority, it makes it easy for the officers to administer. And because of that, it means it's very clear who's going to get it, and it reduces the risk of a legal challenge where business A says, well, I'm comparable with that, why am I not doing it? So the conclusion of that would be, I'll take my finance hassle. It would be option A, which is the 40%, the all pubs in the district, and option E, which is the sole rural businesses that are identified in the guidance. So I think doing those two.
And I think that answers my questions. You were very much more eloquent than my ramblings, but it's those two questions that are wrapped up in this motion, and I really appreciate your clarity. It's that what I learned you give. It's a good partnership. I think you've
Well,
got.
the important thing was that I didn't have any of the officers put their hand up, so I misunderstood. So that's a good start.
You were answering my.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. I saw Councillor Clegg's hand, but I'll go to can I go to Councillor Clegg and then Councillor Pickens?
But I'm not being too cheeky to Councillor. I've got two questions. First of all, on the clarification on the options, my understanding is that these are not distinct options that you can simply add together, because some businesses would be
There'll be an overlap.
there are no overlaps. So we need to be aware of not double counting. So, for example, a sole pub in a rural settlement is also a pub in the district. It also falls in category A,
Correct.
and it's also sole rural business or type pub.
Yeah.
And so we shouldn't just say, oh well, A plus E is £56,000.
81,135.
It works out.
It is not, you're right.
So they can't just be simply split.
No.
In hindsight, I think actually a Venn diagram.
Well, to be fair to officers, what officers wanted to do was give us options. You'll note there are no recommendations in this paper because that wasn't the position they're in. They were saying these are the things that you could do, you could choose from. I think they would initially thought we would just pick one option, and I'm just being a bit cheeky by saying actually I don't think one option one option addresses both those problems.
Yeah.
And my second question, I think, is actually for Councillor Crawford. I understand we're doing quite a lot of other work with businesses such as pubs to help with things like energy efficiency. I think it's coming under your portfolio rather than mine. We do energy audits for small businesses and make recommendations about how they might lower their energy bills.
They're available. They're available.
Has there been much uptake? Do we have any?
I can answer that from a personal perspective because I'm aware that one of my local pubs has benefited. I mean, I think the thing about our economic development team and the services they offer, the more the business engages with that service, the more they receive from it. So it's a really positive cycle. So I think a lot of businesses might be a bit tentative about going, oh, what can they offer? What can the council offer? But actually, they can offer a lot. So I believe one of my pubs has benefited from the UK SBF funds and applied for a grant to have some outside awnings put up. So it really it helps with their sort of outdoor area and benefits the football into the pub. But also they had an energy audit, and I was speaking to one of our officers, and apparently it had a really significant effect on their outgoings, because by the very nature, a lot of our pubs are old drafty buildings. So if that can be seen to, then it can really have a dramatic effect. And I am aware that I think in the last episode, the last issue of our business support newsletter, it is a hospitality issue. So I was speaking to I was speaking to a publican in Harwell, and actually, well, they sort of were positive about the business rate relief thing. When we sat down and we talked about all the things that we could be offering to pubs and businesses, other businesses, about making them aware of all the opportunities they have available to them, the publican was really grateful that we'd opened that conversation. So I think I don't want to, I completely trodden on all your toes, Councillor Crawford, but yeah, it's really important that the economic development team has a significant input into the overall health of pubs and businesses, rural and in our town. Councillor Fawcett. Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Pickles, were you going to go directly on to that?
I was going to stomp all over Councillor Crawford's toes. Harry was first.
I don't mind if it's.
You go to Councillor Crawford. Okay. Councillor Fawcett.
So yes, you've mentioned one example. So in terms of energy audits, the old crowd coaching in Farringdon is one that's benefited. Also Cotswold Boat Hire at Busker and Charney Manor at Charney Bassett. And I think it's worth making the point that that can be an incredibly valuable thing for a business. The amount of money that some businesses could save by getting an energy audit and then investing could be more valuable by some way than what we're discussing today. And yes, and then getting back onto the Rural Prosperity Fund grants again. The same pub in Farringdon benefited from that, as you mentioned, but we gave grants to Down to Earth Cafe in Wantage for their cold storage facilities at Vale and Downland Museum, and also in Wantage got money to upgrade their IT equipment. Tap Social had some money to help expand their Food Social Bakehouse at Sanford-on-Thames, or near Kennington, as I think of it, in this direction. And the Georgia Upton invested in their community shop and cafe. So that's just a few examples, of a lot more as well. So yeah, it is worth making the point that this is one thing we can do today, and very much I support the direction of the discussion. But the Vale has done a huge amount, and we have our team, which was in my portfolio until about a month ago, which is why I know all this, and is now in Councillor Crawford's portfolio, and I'm sure he will look after it very well. We have a really good team, small team, but a really, really good team, really innovative. They really have done a huge amount to help businesses in the Vale.
Yeah, it's been in my portfolio too, that's why I know about it. I'm loath to ignore Helen. Councillor House.
Is yours relevant to that?
Not really.
No. So, just going back to the basics, I think we should really thank officers for really looking out clear all the options, and Councillor Coleman for also clearly laying it out. But I just wanted to say three things really. One, we have the motion, but that's not the end. That was just the start of the conversation. So I don't think we should ever feel constrained about what was in that motion. It just started the journey for us. We've got two distinct problems that we're dealing with in one package, but it won't be one package. It could be two. It really will be two packages. The Venn diagram comes in here. We're recognising the specific issues that pubs are facing, and in particular the problem with the business rates. They've got lots of other problems, as Councillor Coleman said. So that's one. And if we acknowledge that pubs have a problem, have specific issues, and they are creating a community space for their rural communities, whether they're rural on the edge of the market town or they're rural in a tiny village, they're all struggling. It's not a different problem. And they're not city pubs, as pubs in our market towns. They're far more like rural pubs than they are city pubs. The second thing is recognising the specific issues around community and small villages and small settlements. And I think by taking option A and C, the other one, E, whichever one it is, I think that enables us to deal with two issues in one go. If we decide we can't do A, for whatever reason, that we don't want to do all pubs, as suggested by Councillor Smith, then we really do need to come back and look where we are, maybe next year, or maybe when the new Prime Minister has got his feet under the table, and see if he really is going to follow through with what he says. Because I don't think we can separate our pubs into different categories just based on geography, because our communities are our communities wherever they live.
Thank you. No, that's a very good point. And I think I'll move on because I know that we're conscious of time, but very good points. And Councillor Crawford, and then I'll go to Councillor Coleman to sum up.
Thank you. And I know that those who have stood on as much as they were, I would have not worn sandals. I agree with Councillor Coleman, and that's the options that I think I would go for that he's expressed. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that business rates generally are both unfair and a shambles. They are the poll tax for businesses.
Yeah.
You have to pay it before you've taken a pound into the till. They are fundamentally unfair. And I'll break that. My party's got a policy that would radically change the whole system. But they're also shambles. So, certainly pubs in my small market town, some of them have seen a 0% increase. and some have seen a 50% increase for no apparent reason. And then there's the classification issue. So we have a hostelry in my market town that has a restaurant and a very popular bar, but it also has some letting rooms. So it's classified as a hotel, which will mean that it's not going to qualify under the scheme. But it has seen a 100% increase. The business rate bill has gone from £50,000 to £100,000. That's an extra £1,000 a week of net income or profit that they have to generate just to stand still. So the whole system is flawed, and although I will be supporting this, the proposal that I think Councillor Coleman is coming up with, we shouldn't also lose track of putting pressure on government to get them to focus on the fundamental issues of business rates. They are flawed, they're unfair, and frankly they need to change completely.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford, and I would go to Councillor Coleman because I think you'd like to sum up and maybe put a proposal in.
Thank you. Yeah, so in sum, I mean, it's been said several times, but I'd like to thank our officers for their work on this because it isn't easy and it does involve looking at, in my simple words, lots of very complicated spreadsheets to work out who falls in what category. So, but I think that's been laid out very clearly here. And I think in particular, the officers have understood the spirit of what was asked for in the motion, as opposed to going literally down the line of what was there. So thank you for that. As I said, I think we've tried to resolve two problems, both of which were created by this government. So we're trying to fix their problem. There's no way that we're going to do it. And, what we can try and do is help out in a small way, or the best way we can, but it will be a small way. And I recognise that businesses will to some degree be a little bit disappointed that we can't do more. However, we're doing what we can.
Yeah.
So I think what I would like to do is approve the introduction. This is what Cabinet's been asked to recommend, to approve the introduction of a local discretionary relief scheme. And then I think it's something we need to make a recommendation to council. So it has to go to council. Actually, no, it doesn't need to go to council because it's less than 100. So we can recommend that we approve the scheme and criteria and conditions detailed in options A and E for this scheme. And also, I think an additional recommendation, the leader writes to the government to express our concern over the impact of changes to government policy and the impact it's having on businesses, but particularly the pubs, and request that they review in particular the business rates, but the way business rates are run, full stop, not just the pubs. I'm sure that Andy will be able to work out some better wording than that.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So it's recommendation A and B, which will be A and E. It's proposed, and then an extra recommendation C, which will be about lobbying government about concerns. So I'll put that all in writing.
Thank you very much.
So I'll propose that.
Who would like to second that? Your hand up for that. Councillor Crawford. I think everybody would like to second that one, but everybody gets the opportunity to agree. It's agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
As long as I can tell the landlady that I supported it, that's fine.
We will move.
You wouldn't want to be drinking a pint in the pub that you said no to.
We're bordering on interests here, aren't we? Be careful.
Strike one.
So, we're going on to agenda item 8, and it's the half the Vale. So, the annual delivery plan, the report 25-26, and I am introducing it on behalf of Councillor Paulsham, who isn't here today. So this report and its appendices capture and track the delivery against the 4 strategic priorities of the Half Vale Council Plan set in 2025, which are action on climate change and nature recovery, promoting healthy and sustainable inclusive communities, providing the homes and infrastructure people need, and the financial stability and innovative transformation. This is the first of the annual reports against that plan and gives a good overview of many of the services that are delivered by the council and how they are performing. They remind everyone that we have changed the reporting period this year. The 2025-26 annual delivery plan was adopted in July 2025 and was intended to cover a reporting period up to June 2026. We have moved this to report up to the end of March 2026 so that future annual delivery plans more closely fit in with the budget setting process. The report uses key performance indicators, RAG rated infographics and narratives to appropriately assess and illustrate performance. Where targets have been set, the outcomes have been captured to indicate where these have either not been met or have been exceeded, and where known, the reasons for those outcomes are given. There is also recognition that the wide variety of projects and activities are either delivered directly by the council in partnership with others, or show where the council can seek to use its influence. An earlier draft of the report has also been considered by the Scrutiny Committee, who, with their comments, suggestions and clarifications, have played a key role in shaping the draft of the report to make it even more useful to our residents. So I would like to commend and thank Scrutiny members for their input to annual performance reporting process. Subject to the approval by Cabinet today, a fully designed version will be developed over the summer and published documenting the snapshot in time. I would also like to encourage everyone to refer to the delivery plan dashboard, which is designed to make data comparison and trend spotting easier. It's just one of the new reporting tools that we have adapted to improve how we present our performance services delivered. In addition, I want to express my thanks to the officers for all their hard work in putting together the report in this new format. I'm sure that many of us remember the old format of reporting with extensive spreadsheets and almost entirely narrative reports on targets. The new format is without a doubt a huge improvement. Therefore, I'd like to propose that we move the recommendation of the report that Cabinet approved the annual delivery plan end of year report 2025-26. I have a second. I saw Councillor Smith first. I think I had 3 people there. Would anybody like to speak to this? I mean, I think it is it's a very positive story, and I'm very glad to see that the reporting structure has been overhauled. Would you like to make a quick comment?
Just a quick comment on the online dashboard, which I understand is publicly visible, so anyone can go and have a look at it. I think it's great that it's there, and that we are making it far more transparent about what we're doing and so on. I think the formats and the layout could do with it improving. It can be a bit tricky to work through it, and I've had discussion with Councillor Caution, and he said yes, that's the next phase. Getting something in place is the first phase, making it much more usable is the second. So that's in the works, and I'm very keen to see that progress.
So I'd like to put colleagues to paragraph 5, because for me this is probably about the most important paragraph, because it's fine having a plan, but it has to be able to be implemented. So second sentence, for the council plan to serve as a credible strategic framework, it must balance ambition with financial responsibility, ensuring it is supported by appropriate budgeting. As finance member, you'd be surprised if I didn't agree with that sentiment. We have to be practical in what we're able to do, and we've already talked about 2 topics in this meeting where we will have to either have made that decision about balance, or where we will have to our aspirations against what we can afford to do. So that to me is key.
So more items to come.
Thank you. So if there are no further comments, I'd like to thank the officers again, and with me proposing and Councillor Smith seconding.
Yep.
Is everybody
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We can go on to the next item, which concerns the Thames Valley SDS, which I am also introducing, so just bear with. Thank you. So this is the Thames Valley Spatial Development Strategy, Development and Government. governance. So I just wanted to give you a quick introduction. So the paper before you sets out the process for pre-inception phase of a Thames Valley Spatial Development Strategy, or SDS. SDSs are a new statutory requirement for upper tier authorities and unitary authorities as set out in the Planning and Infrastructure Act 2025. The government is targeting having coverage of the whole of England to have an examined SDS in place by mid-2029. The purpose of an SDS is to set a vision and provide a regional spatial framework setting the scale and distribution of growth, investment opportunities and place infrastructure across local planning areas. Over a 30-year strategic planning horizon, over 30 years strategic planning horizon, the SDS will set policies for the distribution of housing and economic growth, along with key infrastructure and environment objectives, including climate change, mitigation and adaptation policies, and sits above the local plan process. A consultation was launched in February 2026 on the proposed geography for the Thames Valley SDS, and the outcome of that consultation, which is expected by autumn of this year, when the government will set out the geography for the SDS. Government consultation proposed the geography of Bracknell Forest, Buckinghamshire, Reading, Oxfordshire, Slough, Swindon, West Berkshire, Windsor, Maidenhead and Wokingham. Following government confirmation on geography, it has been indicated that bespoke secondary legislation will establish a strategic planning board, SPB, for the Thames Valley. So the purpose of this paper, a similar paper is taken through all Thames Valley authorities to agree partnership model for progressing the SDS prior to the establishment of a strategic planning board, SPB. As a district council, we will not be responsible for delivery nor be a statutory member of the strategic planning board. However, you will note in paragraph 12 that the intention is that district councils would be co-opted onto the board under interim governance arrangements until LGR has been completed in Oxfordshire. The report sets out the interim work proposed, including the creation of a shared baseline that will provide an understanding of what the SDS is intended to do and how it relates to local plans in setting out key issues, opportunities and constraints across the area. The recommendation is that Cabinet is asked to note the various recommendations as set out in the first page of this report and to delegate the detailed agreements and working arrangements for pre-inception of the SDS to the Deputy Chief Executive placed in consultation with the Director of Legal and Democracy. So that is my proposal, and I will ask for a seconder. Councillor Pickles, thank you. So I think apart from the words SDS in this introduction, the word that was most mentioned was the word government, because this is, I think, as we're all aware, it's something that is being imposed on us from government. We have very little say in how it looks, how it works. But I just wanted to make you aware of that, and we are noting this as part of the process. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, in terms of the recommendation, for most of it, as you say, we haven't got a huge amount of choice. It's just noting it. We don't get any choice whether this is the right approach. I've got pretty serious concerns this might not be the right approach, and it very much feels like the opposite of devolution and taking more decision making away from people, businesses, communities on the ground who know what is needed. In terms of the recommendation on part E, it delegates detailed arrangements and working arrangements to the Deputy Chief Executive in consultation with Director of Legal and Democratic. Is it possible to add in a cabinet member, consultation with a cabinet member at that point, or is that not something that's practicable?
Suzanne, would you like to speak to Councillor Smith's query?
Yeah, I have no issue if you want to add in consultation with the cabinet member for SDS, we can add that in.
Okay, that's good.
So I'm not sure. I mean, it'd probably be a couple of cabinet members, or maybe with yourself as leader. I don't know. It just feels like it would be good to have. I know we're not going to have a huge amount of say over it, but just help with the understanding and flag up any issues.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So
That's
with the
okay.
amended,
Yeah. So with that amendment, then I'm welcome. Am I happy? I don't know if I'm happy, but I'm. Yeah.
You're okay.
I'm okay with. I'll support the recommendation, but yeah, like I say, it's something that we need to keep an eye on, and it's with so many changes in the world of planning at the moment, this could have a big impact on our district. So we just need to be very alive to it and keep ourselves informed.
And you can see very much why Councillor Paulson has this within his portfolio.
Yeah.
It's just like it's an intentional strategic planning. So if we don't have any more comments and we've got the amendment noted, would you like us to read out?
Do you want me to read out the particular one that's changed?
Yeah, just this one that's changed.
So if you're happy with this, I've put delegates the detail arrangements and working arrangements for pre-inception development of the SDS to the Deputy Chief Executive place in consultation with the Director of Legal and Democratic and relevant cabinet members. Does that cover what you need? Or is it something?
Do you want specifically the leader?
Yeah.
You make it the leader and then the
Yeah,
leader will then.
leader, because it's that
Okay,
governance aspect.
so it's just and the leader. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. That's a very good point. I wasn't sure how much flexibility we had. On
No,
this.
I wasn't sure either, but no,
Good,
that's
good to ask. So with those recommendations set out on the first page of the report with the amendment, in consultation with the Director of Legal and Democratic and the Council Leader. Are we happy? So I'm proposing the recommendation and Councillor Pickhill's is seconding, and everybody's agreed.
Yes.
Thank you. So we will now go on to what would have been item 11. So it's the revised land and property policy, and I think that's Crawford.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're introducing.
So thank you, Chair. This report brings forward the updated policies for how we manage and dispose and transfer council land and property assets. The assets are fundamental to how we deliver services, support communities and manage our finances. The purpose of the report is to set out the revised approach to property asset disposal and seeks cabinet approval to adopt both a joint property asset disposal policy and a community asset transfer policy. These policies directly support the council plan and also align with our corporate asset management framework, ensuring a consistent and joined up approach across the organisation. Why is this review needed? Colleagues may recall that the original disposal policy followed the strategic property review in 2021. And since then, processes have proved resource intensive and often frustrating for applicants. And this is largely due to restrictions on land use, such as covenants emanating, for example, from the large-scale voluntary transfer of council houses back in 1995. So this is a strengthened framework for identifying and managing surplus and underperforming assets. It ensures transparency in decision-making and compliance with legal requirements. And it also confirms that disposal decisions are structured, evidence-based and considered case by case. With the community asset transfer policy, proposing to bring this forward as standalone policy rather than embedding it within the disposal policy. And the key changes in the revised approach, removing the minor land disposal inquiries process, which has not delivered value and has created inefficiencies and has been very frustrating for a number of residents aren't aware of. Removing overly prescriptive elements in favour of professional judgment, applied on a case-by-case basis. And these changes will provide clearer guidance for both officers and members and indeed members of the public. Members should note that we are required to comply with Section 123 of the Local Government Act, 1972, ensuring best consideration is achieved unless an exemption applies. And obviously the wider context is importantly, these revised policies also ensure that we have a consistent and transparent framework in place ahead of LGR. So we've got two options. Option A is to not adopt the revised policies. Option B is to adopt the revised policies, providing clear up-to-date guidance for managing council assets. I would say, in conclusion, it's a sensible, practical update based on operational experiences and designed to improve both effectiveness and transparency, and therefore recommend option B as set out.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. Does anybody have any questions?
I just had a really quick clarification, which was just just to clarify my understanding. So if we're adopting this, we're not changing anything radically about how we do things. It's more about the accuracy of the information and people's understanding of how we do things, sort of good communication and sort of openness rather than a radical change in how
Absolutely,
we're arranging the actual practicalities. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments?
I need a second there.
Second.
Councillor Smith. Yeah, happy to second. And with no further discussion, we will resolve the recommendations set out on the first page of the report.
Is option B.
Option B approves the revised joint community housing transfer policy. Okay. Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. And moving swiftly on, the joint community cohesion policy, and this is being introduced by Councillor Pickles.
Good. So the purpose of this report is first to update Cabinet on the wider community cohesion activity that's already going on across the district, and two, to recommend Cabinet to approve the creation of a 5-year joint community cohesion strategy with South Oxfordshire District Council, including an action plan for 2027 to 28. So in recent years, both South and Vale have experienced significant growth in migrant populations, supported by multiple schemes and partnership working. Alongside this, the rising cost of living has increased hardship, inequality, and demand on services, while putting pressure on housing, health, and community relations. Council has existing schemes to promote health and wellbeing, including the new Be Together programme, supporting integration and independence through activities focused on activity, connection, mobility, and skills. National reviews highlight that integration should support new migrants, while long-term community cohesion strategies help all communities live well together and manage social tensions. In December 2025, Vale Council approved a motion to develop a community cohesion action plan, and a similar motion was also agreed by SODC. Officers are proposing a joint 5-year community cohesion strategy and a 2-year action plan addressing migration, inequality, and wider community pressures. Officers propose to work with Belong, who are an expert partner, to lead engagement, bring stakeholders together, and co-design strategy informed by national best practice. So a bit more on Belong. Belong, the Cohesion and Integration Network, is committed to creating a more inclusive and connected society. Belong brings together a diverse group of professionals with backgrounds in research, community engagement, communications, facilitation, and policy, and their experience includes research, training, and strategy development. They are partnered with National Lottery and endorsed by LGA to work with 40 councils to develop their community cohesion strategies. Councils will require 125,000 to partner with Belong, which is 62,500 from each council. So the overall project cost, it's easiest if you actually look at your pack on page 174 in table 3. But basically, from what we're putting in, I mean, 100,000 will come back towards community projects in our districts. That's 50,000 for each district. And there are many ways of looking at these figures, and Phil and I have been looking at these figures different ways around, but that's basic structure, and it is detailed in your pack. So the recommendations are written in the report. So I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just very briefly say what they are. So it's first to note the existing community cohesion activity already being done, then to develop the development of a 5-year community cohesion strategy that supports motions. And subject to that being approved, Cabinet note the strategy will finalise a fully funded action plan for 2027-28. And then subject also to the approval, Cabinet will approve the commissioning of Belong to work with the council to develop the community cohesion strategy. I've got Jacka Holland and Phil Barker who very kindly come along and are in the room rather than little circles on the wall. So I'm sure they'll be very happy to answer questions, and I will as well. So, thank you all.
You want to come to the table, please? I mean, I feel that you can tap your all of this and
I did it last night.
I'm sure Helen has details and any of our questions, but it's nice to see you here. And I just wanted to ask you, maybe one each, what you saw as sort of like one of the main benefits of this. Obviously, we welcome this. It is such a very good initiative, particularly at this time. So, did you just want one highlight each?
You go first. I could talk all day about this.
Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah. Don't worry, I think for me, the most important thing about this is that it deals with two distinct but integrated issues. One is that we are lucky to have new people come with new experiences to our areas. And within that, though, that causes fear. And we've got an issue where people are feeling less wealthy, they're feeling less connected. Education, there's so many different things around this, and it's actually by trying to look at all the different great things that the Vale does and South does for our communities and bring them into one place to enable people to see that we are all one peoples. Firstly, thank you for asking us to give our views. That's really nice of you. So thanks for giving us the opportunity of putting something forward. And the one thing that I would put forward is that the nature of kind of picking issues means that we divide communities. The idea about a cohesion strategy is it's about everybody and it's about pulling people together. So I think this is a great step forward because it takes some of the fragmented great work that people have done, not just in communities, but in housing and other parts of the district work that we do, and it starts to bring it all together under one umbrella. And I think that draws people together. And I think that's the benefit of it.
It sounds like a great partnership working piece. Did any? I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. I always tend to do that with my children. It's like, what's your one highlight? Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, one.
I'm
I'm really pleased to see this report. I'm really pleased we're doing this work, and that we're one of a number of councils which are working together on this agenda. I mean, I found it incredibly saddening that in recent years, a lot of the social progress that I thought was being made in the UK, particularly around issues to do with racism, and also some issues to do with LGBT plus, seeing that we seem to be in a period where some of that's now going backwards, and some people clearly are very keen to exploit the potential differences in our communities and blame one group of people. But as you said, a lot of people are not feeling well off, but the finger of blame is being pointed at a different group of people who are not necessarily very well off either, rather than at the systematic reasons for that happening. So I think there's a limit to what we can do as a small district council in our communities, but we should do what we can I'm really pleased to see this and that we are making some progress. And I hope that this period that we're in at the moment turns out to be a short one and we get back to the more progressive track that I think we've been on for most of my adult lifetime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well said, thank you.
Yeah, can I start? So, last year in the budget, we voted in the £25,000, which is in that table, and thank you, because it's good to see how the money's being invested. So, perfect. I note that there is a link between this strategy and also the community hub, which we also funding. So the 25,000 was a one-off. Does this? So I'll address it to the member first. Okay, Chair. Does this commit us into future years for the community hub funding? Because that was a discretionary spend.
I think Phil has some. You've had some thoughts about the community hub funding, haven't you? How that can be integrated into.
Yeah, in simple answer, it doesn't commit us.
Okay, thank you.
And one more clarification was that we agreed a one-off of the 25,000, but with an understanding that we would come back at future years once we'd understood the issue a little bit better.
You'll understand I'm looking from a finance, so I only hear the first bit. I don't
so we will be coming back to talk about that issue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crawford.
I'm not sure it's mentioned in this report, but I'm from Wantage and I've seen firsthand the work that's been done by the Community Development Officer at Kingsgrove shared post with Grove Airfield. And that is, it's about two things, I think. It's about welcoming new people to the very sizable estates and trying to develop a sense of community internally. Bearing in mind people are moving in, some are local, some are Oxfordshire, some are elsewhere in the UK, quite a few from overseas. Trying to develop a sense of community within the development, but also building connections with the existing community, the old people, not just like me, for example. That's worked really well, I think. It's been running probably 5 years now. I don't want to cause Councillor Coleman concern, but it would be really nice if we had one of those officers for every significant community across the Vale, because the work they do on the ground does bring communities together, regardless of background and everything else. So I think that's a good example of where we should blow our own trumpet that this post has achieved really good things actually in the Wantage and Grove area. I'm not sure it's used elsewhere. It's something that exists elsewhere, but it's certainly valuable, and I'd recommend it to anybody if we had the money.
We have the money.
This poacher turned gamekeeper, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Councillor Pickhills is proposing these recommendations set out. I shan't read them all because they are lengthy. But have we noted the resolutions on page 2 of the report? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Councillor Pickhills is proposing it. I'd like to second that. So I don't get to second anything. And do we all agree?
Agree.
Thank you. It's really good. And thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. That's it. So I would like to thank all officers. I haven't had a chance to thank all officers for each report, but the amount of work that's gone into these ones has been phenomenal. So thank you to everybody online, and please pass on our appreciation to your teams. Thank you for everybody in the room and online, and I will close the meeting. Thank you.